Uh-huh.
Whereas anthracite coal kind of distributes less predictably and more like on a slope. And the fire is able to spread both uphill and downhill, which
Okay, so that's clearly designed for demons. Like
for
that's
demons.
a demon elevator to hell. Like
Yeah.
it's the incline and the decline into hell. Just light a match and they're coming up.
Yeah. So, by the way, apparently, and I never thought about this at all, but apparently surface fires do not spread downhill. That's not a thing. And I guess that makes sense because fire reaches up, right?
Right. So where's it going to go?
It goes up, right? Well, but apparently that's just not the case for an underground anthracite coal fire. It can go
because
up
it's
or
basically
down.
like, come on, it's fuel. Come this way. It's still more burny death time.
Yeah, it's basically just being lured along. But anyway, so somehow that combines to make it harder to predict where the fire will go and how to try to respond. And I don't know. Again, hazy, but it was talked about. I'm mentioning it. Somehow the fact that it was anthracite coal made it harder.
The coal deposit made it harder.
Yeah. So, like far, far too many things in our
demonic
world.
zigzags. That's exactly what they are. So you've got regular, like, cool, chill, neutral coal that's like, oh yeah, we'll lay in a flat line. And then you got the demonic zigzags that are like, fuck you, we're going this way.
So right, anthracite is just demon coal, apparently.
Yes, it is. Okay, I've decided.
Got it. All right. Well, the fire became a political and bureaucratic nightmare.
Shouldn't it just be a straight nightmare? Like, nope. The town is fucking burning nightmare?
Yeah. Well, see, basically, again, I'm playing real high level and loose with the details because it was an audiobook.
Yeah, sure.
But first there were issues of people not even wanting to admit that the fire was a problem.
They didn't believe in the fire. No, that smell of burning coal and the ash falling from the sky, you're just imagining it. It's just really dirty rain.
The ash doesn't fall from the sky.
It does if it goes high. It does with wildfires.
Yes. But what happened here was they didn't want to admit, from what I can tell, the way the fire started, because it was not legal to light the garbage dump on fire. That was not legal.
What the fuck was anyone thinking?
And so nobody wanted to be responsible for this illegal act. So basically,
we didn't want the air to smell like poo and garbage. So we went ahead and set this big ass illegal bonfire. Except for we're not going to admit that we did it because we weren't supposed to.
Yeah. So there are like alternate theories of how the fire started. And to be honest, I didn't even write them down because the only place they were even acknowledged was in the audiobook, and everywhere else I looked said it was the dump fire. And it's kind of like the only reason people are saying it wasn't the dump fire is because the dump fire wasn't legal. Yeah. But anyway, so nobody wanted to be responsible for it, and that still seems to be true. And then
they were playing hot potato with the hot pile of garbage.
They were basically just trying to deal with it locally before anybody found out.
Smelly garbage and coal mine. I'm pretty sure people in Ohio smelled that shit.
Well, when they did finally acknowledge that they needed help, the next issue was nobody wanted to take responsibility, in that they would ask agencies for help and agencies would say, no, that belongs in someone else's jurisdiction.
Oh my God.
We don't have the funds to deal with that right now.
We're going from literal hell to bureaucratic hell.
Yeah. Or, one time they'd say, well, it's the city's problem. And the city was like, no, it's outside our limits. It's the county's problem. Like,
oh my God.
Kind of bullshit, right? So nobody wanted to be stuck with the bill, basically. And it was so politicized that it was actually part of the political platform during one of the governor's races in the 60s for Pennsylvania.
Oh, by the way, I promised to do something about that hot garbage fire that spread into the coal mine.
Yep. Basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So there were some unsuccessful attempts to extinguish the fire.
Clearly.
And mostly they were unsuccessful. It was always for the same fucking reason, because everyone wanted to keep the fucking cost down. Nobody wanted to spend the money.
Okay, the world is on fire. Just let it go.
So an example of that is apparently the use of boreholes is a pretty standard practice when dealing with a mine fire, where they basically explore the area to try to determine the extents of the fire and get an idea of where it is underground. But one project refused to allow the use of boreholes and basically just said, nope, just do exactly what we say on paper and don't even worry about it, because they didn't want to put the boreholes in the budget.
Okay, I know it's like boreholes, like BORE, bore into the ground, but I'm just thinking of them like releasing these hogs, like, dig out the fire, Junior.
There are no truffles involved in this.
There's no, like, this is not truffle hunting. This is coal fire hunting. And then they all have a pig roast after, because the poor things just dug too far and fell right in.
Ugh, yeah.
Okay. No.
It's fine. They also, at one point, they wanted to do a trench, basically trenching out an area to keep it from getting to the town, kind of like when they're fighting forest fires and they like control burn an area so that when the fire gets there, there's no fuel and it stops.
Right.
It's kind of like that.
It didn't work, did it?
Oh, they were just basically fighting over the cost of it, basically. At one point, I swear to God, at one point, there was a company that offered to take on the cost of fighting the fire for free. 100%. They wanted no compensation. But what they did want was the rights to any coal that they acquired in the process. And they were turned down because,
oh my God,
the powers that be didn't want to hand over the coal because money, basically.
Okay, but it's like Bernie death coal. They're going to get black lung before they find any fucking coal.
Yeah. And at one point, they also tried to use fly ash, which I did not know what was, so I had to look it up. It's what's left over when coal is done burning. It's coal ash, basically.
Okay.
So it's literally the parts that can't be burnt because it was left behind. So they tried to use fly ash to basically fill in and extinguish and create a barrier that way. But again, trying to keep costs down, they didn't use enough. And over time, it settles. And so
I was going to say, yeah.
And they didn't use enough. They didn't go back and fill it up, whatever. So that didn't work. So essentially, basically,
oh my God.
there were so many failed attempts and so much arguing about the fire and who was responsible and who was going to take care of it and whatever, that literally it got to the point that the residents of the town believed that there was some big grand conspiracy to essentially run them out and steal their coal, because unlike most areas, the city itself owned the coal under the ground, which was not common. So their houses, their property, whatever, was only worth so much, but they were gonna, what they were on, what they could dip into, the coal that they were literally living on top of was worth a fortune.
Was that in their livelihoods, probably.
And that. So it was so bad that they literally thought there was talk that there was a big conspiracy to basically run them out and steal the coal, which there's no support for, but that's how inept the response was. That,
dear God,
it made more sense that this was on purpose than to believe that this many people were this inept for this long. And I mean,
oh dear God.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, probably too late to say that, the fire ran unchecked, and sulfur gases and carbon monoxide levels throughout the town rose. The ground temperature rose.
Oh God.
Reaching in some areas at times 900 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface.
Oh my God.
Right?
How the hell did the ground just not melt?
Oh, well, okay, so here's something that I learned through all of this, but basically, obviously the mine fire underground, it's going to destabilize things because you've got wild temperature fluctuations, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, you're burning away the coal, which means it's turning from a rather hard substance to that fly ash, right? So that's
Yeah.
going to destabilize. And in the actual mine shafts themselves, it's going to burn away all the support structures that
The
were
support
holding that.
structure. Yeah.
So
That's going to be
basically,
gone.
when these things happen, it just randomly causes these cave-ins, these subsidences, which is that sinkhole that happened.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so issues began to spread. These toxic gases were seeping up into homes through the basements.
Of course they were.
Sometimes rapidly. The homes were equipped with monitors at all
and they'd
times
be screeching
to monitor to monitor their homes so that the residents can combat the fumes. They were all advised to keep their windows open basically at all times, all year round. The ground became unsteady, as we said. Pavement was buckling, foundations were cracking, subsidences would happen suddenly and unexpectedly.
Yeah, clearly.
And they even have speculated at this point that all of the bodies that were buried in the cemeteries have since been consumed by the fires.
So basically they were completely cremated. Like, we know you didn't sign up for cremation, but, what can you do?
Basically. So in 1992, Congress decided to relocate the town and bought the residents out for $42 million.
Whoa.
Worth pointing out, by the way, when this all started in the 60s.
If they would have just spent.
They were literally quibbling over tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, Jesus.
And now they bought the town out for $42 million. And they did that because it was cheaper and easier than actually fixing the fire in the 90s, right?
Oh my God.
So basically they declared the entire town condemned.
Right.
The few people who did stay were forbidden to sell or pass down their properties. So when they die, they will remain empty and become property of the government.
Could you imagine having like a grandma that refuses to move, but she still insists on hosting Christmas every year? So you have to show up in like a hazmat suit and a rebreather, like, all right, grandma, let's get this over with. It's 8,000 degrees in your kitchen.
Oh God, no, I cannot imagine that. Centralia no longer even has a zip code.
Because it's hell.
Basically.
66666.
The zip code, just fun little tidbit, used to be 17927.
And now it's SOS.
Yeah, so residents have to go to a neighboring town to get their mail.
Why would they stay?
Some did. Some stayed. So some pop culture references. So Centralia has inspired or been featured in several novels and movies. The most well-known of this, most likely, is the Silent Hill video game series.
Yep.
Which gave rise, the Silent Hill video game series gave rise to a movie in 2006.
Yes.
The movie was loosely based on Centralia. As the backstory of the town involved an underground coal mine catching fire and the residents being forced to evacuate. Right. Supposedly. I probably have seen the movie, but I don't remember. And I
have, and you know what? There were demons.
Yeah, maybe that's why you're so convinced there are demons.
There are demons.
So many people believe that the town inspired the video games as well, but what I read actually insisted that that was not the case. So I have
because there's another burning town that they were inspired by.
No, so I have a quote from VG247.com, which I believe is video game 24/7. I think is what that stands for.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, so it says, just to clarify, there was no town that inspired the design of Silent Hill in the game, states Masahiro Ito, art director for the first 3 games, and he put that on Twitter.
Okay.
To be honest, I really get tired of this. It's hard to say where the misconceptions began, but it's been a talking point in the fandom for years. And then just to further confuse things, evidently, this confusion inadvertently made itself true as later games in the series incorporated imagery from the movie.
Because they're like, oh my God, fine. We can't get y'all to leave it alone, so we're just going to go ahead and add this shit. Are you happy now?
Right. So Centralia has become a tourist